Imagine you're a ruler. You just seized power in a land riddled with chaos. Around you, men plot. Friends smile through gritted teeth. Your throne is barely warm, and already there are whispers of betrayal. What do? Do you try to be loved, hoping kindness will inspire loyalty? Or do you become the wolf in the shadows, feared, respected, untouchable? Centuries ago, a man dared to answer this question. His name? Niccolò Machiavelli. A name that still strikes controversy in the hearts of politicians, philosophers, and leaders alike. In today's video, we'll dive deep into one of Machiavelli's most misunderstood ideas. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But what did he really mean by this? Was Machiavelli advocating cruelty? Or was he warning us about the dark truths of human nature? Let's begin. Before we dissect his ideas, we need to know the man behind them. Niccolò Machiavelli was born in Florence in 1469, during the height of the Renaissance. Italy at the time wasn't a unified country. It was a fractured land of city-states, constantly at war, ripe with political assassinations, betrayals, and shifting allegiances. Machiavelli was a diplomat, a civil servant, and a sharp observer of power. But in 1512, he lost everything. The ruling Medici family came back into power and ousted him. Tortured and exiled, Machiavelli retreated into his countryside estate and began writing what would become his most infamous book, The Prince. And in this slim volume, he laid bare the brutal mechanics of power. Let's now turn to the quote that has echoed across history. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. At first glance, it sounds harsh, maybe even evil. But Machiavelli was not writing a fairy tale. He was writing a manual for survival, in a world where power was everything and naivety could cost you your life. To understand this quote, we must unravel it word by word, and context by context. Machiavelli understood love, not as a poetic ideal, but as a fragile emotion. He believed that love is based on obligation, as long as things go well. People love a leader when the weather is fine, when there's food on the table, when life is convenient. But what happens when things go wrong? When taxes rise, when enemies attack, when tough decisions must be made? Love fades quickly. People turn on their leaders. They blame, they criticize, they abandon. In Machiavelli's eyes, love is conditional. And more importantly, it is not in your control. You cannot force someone to love you. It's a gift, a favor, a whim. And in power, you cannot afford to rely on whims. Now contrast that with fear. Fear, Machiavelli argues, is within your control. A leader can create fear, not through cruelty for its own sake, but through decisive actions, strength, and clear consequences. Fear, when properly managed, creates stability. People might not like you, but they won't cross you. And in a world filled with treachery, Machiavelli believed that it is better to have the loyalty of fear than the illusion of love. But he makes a crucial distinction. A prince must avoid being hated. He didn't promote terror. He warned against cruelty without purpose. He believed that fear must be calculated, justified, and never excessive. Because the moment fear turns to hatred, the ruler is doomed. Let's now bring this idea to life through history. 1. Julius Caesar versus Augustus. Julius Caesar was beloved by many, but that didn't stop his assassination. His charisma couldn't save him. Augustus, on the other hand, ruled with cold calculation. He eliminated threats methodically, but maintained a reputation for peace and order. He inspired more fear than affection, yet he died in power. 2. Saddam Hussein versus Muammar Gaddafi. Both ruled with fear, but Hussein kept his fear controlled, maintaining tight surveillance, quick consequences, and appearing strong until the end. Gaddafi, however, descended into cruelty and chaos. He became hated, and when the time came, his people turned on him violently. 3. Steve Jobs, modern analogy. Let's look beyond politics. Steve Jobs wasn't known as a nice guy. Many feared his outbursts and perfectionism. But that very intensity built one of the most powerful companies in history. People feared disappointing him, and that fear created excellence. These stories show us the delicate balance. Fear must be respected, not despised. Psychologists today support some of Machiavelli's observations. Human beings are hardwired to seek safety. When we're uncertain, we gravitate toward authority that feels powerful, even if it's not warm. Fear triggers obedience. Love triggers comfort, but obedience builds systems. Comfort builds dependency. In leadership, whether in nations, businesses, or families, too much emphasis on being liked can dilute authority. We fear disappointing strong leaders, and that fear can become a motivator. Of course, Machiavelli wasn't talking about abusive leadership, but rather realistic influence. Now let's clear up a common misconception. Machiavelli was not saying be a monster. He wasn't endorsing sadism or oppression. In fact, he repeatedly warned leaders not to be hated. A wise prince must act in such a way that his subjects always need him. In other words, maintain control. Be useful. Be firm, but fair. Machiavelli's version of fear is closer to respect with consequences, not brutality for sport. So how does this apply to us today? We're no longer princes or dukes, or are we? Today, every one of us leads in some form. As managers, teachers, parents, creators, influencers, and in the age of likes, followers, and validation, we're obsessed with being loved. But leadership sometimes requires hard choices, disappointing people, setting boundaries, saying no. And in these moments, being feared simply means being respected enough not to be crossed. It means people know you stand for something. It means your authority holds weight. It means you're not trying to please everyone, because those who try to please everyone often end up pleasing no one. Machiavelli wasn't cynical. He was pragmatic. He preferred that a ruler be both feared and loved. But he believed that if you have to choose, fear is the safer bet. Why? Because fear is stable. Love is fleeting. But the best leaders, the truly rare ones, manage both. They inspire devotion, but command respect. They show compassion, but never weakness. Think of Nelson Mandela, or Angela Merkel, or even fictional characters like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. They're not soft, but they're not cruel either. They carry the sword with dignity. So what do we learn from Machiavelli? That power isn't about popularity. It's about purpose, stability, and foresight. To be loved is wonderful, but to be feared, when done with wisdom and restraint, is often more effective. Machiavelli showed us a mirror to human nature, raw, unfiltered, and real. Whether you agree with him or not, his insights remain painfully relevant today. So next time you're faced with the choice to be feared or loved, ask yourself, do I want to be liked or do I want to lead? If this exploration of Machiavelli's philosophy made you think differently about leadership, power, and human nature, consider subscribing. We dive deep into the minds of history's greatest thinkers, uncovering truths that still shape our world. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Would you rather be feared or loved? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more timeless philosophy. Until next time, lead wisely.